Alrighty. Let's see. Thank you everyone for coming to this chat today. Um, give me some feedback in the chat if you can hear and see me. Let's see. All right, very good. Awesome. Thank you everyone. Let's see. We will have uh awesome. So I'm so excited. Thanks everyone for coming to join me today. Um, I am going to really quickly, let's see, just check on some things. Uh, Assign moderator power to Martin. Let's see. How do I assign moderator power to Martin? He should already be a moderator on my account. So he should be able to do it. He should be able to join as the moderator, as far as I'm aware. I've already done that. Um, so, uh, all right. All right. Yeah. Yes. Yes. All right. So, uh, I'll if Martin's not able to join as the moderator for this, he should already have this is my first time going live on YouTube, so still figuring things out on my end a little bit here, but I should have assigned Martin moderator power to this. If he's not able to get in for whatever reason, no worries. We'll just go with things. I will try to basically throughout this chat here I'll try to answer any questions that anyone has as we go through things. Feel free to pop those questions in the chat as we go through. And again, I'll just answer them on the fly. Before jumping into things, just want to give you a little bit of background myself. I'm the indie developer of Story Origin. I left my previous role back in July 2017 to build tools for writers. And really, the way that I got started was so back in high school, I used to write short stories. Was always really interested in writing, and then uh, got to college, became interested in technology and entrepreneurship. Went to work for a few years, and then there was a certain point at which I said, hey, I am ready to go and build something, and I wanted to get back into writing and also build tools for writers. And so I went and I talked to a few writers, and I heard, okay, I'm using, this service deliver my freebie. I use this other service for finding reviewers. I use a different service for creating universal book links. I use some combination of Google Forms and Facebook groups to arrange newsletter swaps. And then I use an Excel spreadsheet for distributing my audiobook promo codes, an Excel spreadsheet for tracking my daily word count and making sure that I'm hitting my writing goals. And then I use, some combination of Word docs or Google Docs and email to get feedback from my beta readers. And it is just a whole lot of things. And so I was like, okay, wait. So you have like five different sign-ins, like three different spreadsheets. This all sounds like a confusing mess. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to build something to help writers out. And I want to do it all, make it a sort of a one-stop shop for you to do all those things. So you don't have to deal with all this context switching between different logins and spreadsheets, etc. And I think if I told you at the time, 5 years ago, that yes, I'm going to build something that does what it takes multiple services and spreadsheets in order to accomplish, you would have probably said, Evan, I don't believe you. And that is the nicest way that you would have put that. Um, the other way would be, Evan, you're hallucinating. Anyway, so I set out to build Story Origin. And that quickly took over 100% of my time. So I was not able to get back into writing the way that I had wanted to. But I was able to start building Story Origin. So I got started with building, focusing on helping authors build their mailing list. So the first couple of features that I built into Story Origin was a way to create reader magnet landing pages, and we're going to talk about what reader magnets are, and to do group promotions. We'll jump into what those are as well. So that's going to be what we mainly focus on today. But that said, there's lots of other stuff on Story Origin. So, like I was saying, beta copies, universal book links, audiobook code distribution, etc. So a lot of different stuff. Um, but today we're just gonna mostly be talking about uh, building a mailing list and using that to find reviewers. So before we jump into things, I want to chat quickly about what today's marketing landscape is like for authors. So if you look across the author marketing landscape, you basically have a few different ways. You have a few different things. So if you are, advertising across Amazon or Facebook, etc., a lot of social media sites, those things are on. Those all those are based on impressions that you have to bid for. So, as more authors and more companies get into advertising on those platforms, the bid rates for those have been increasing over time, which makes it more difficult for authors to reach readers in a cost effective way, because those bids keep increasing, makes it more and more difficult over time to make money from those. The other thing is social media has become pay to play. So it used to be years ago that all of the timelines across various social media sites were all based on just the time on your timeline, right? So if I had followers to my page on Facebook, let's say, if I posted at the time that someone else was online and they refresh their timeline, that post would just show up in their feed because they've subscribed to get content from me. Nowadays, it's all algorithmically driven based on how much engagement your posts are getting, etc. And that means that your posts that you make to, your Facebook page or wherever else are generally only going to be seen by, let's say, 1 to 3% of your audience who are ostensibly subscribed to get your content. So it's this really difficult thing where now, if you actually want to reach the people who are ostensibly subscribed to get your content, you have to pay to boost your posts to your own audience. So it's quite tricky, right? The other thing is that across products, um, just across, whatever retailers where you have your books available, rates of review are quite low. And reviews are really important because, besides the book cover, the first place that most readers will go, even before reading the book description, is to go and to look at the reviews. So if there aren't any reviews on your book, or there's only just like 2 or 3 reviews on your book, people will question, okay, do I really want to be the person that takes that leap to read this book when I don't know what I'm going to be getting? So it's an incredibly challenging environment in the author marketing landscape. But there is this archaic thing called email, which, it's been around for like over 40 years at this point. And it really helps us to solve all of those different challenges, right? Email generally has actually become cheaper over time to deliver emails to to more of your readers. So there's lots of affordable email service providers, and we'll talk about email service providers in a second. But as time has gone on, there have been more email service providers that have come along, which are offering to help you with bigger lists, sending more emails at, more affordable rates. So the other thing with email is you have a direct point of contact with your readers, right? You don't you're not beholden to trying to, get certain engagement and then pay to reach those people who are ostensibly subscribed to you, right? With email, you own that list. And if a email service provider, shuts down your account, or your email service provider shuts down for whatever reason, you own that email list. So you can always take that, go to another email service provider, and it's just, you're just start sending emails out from that other email service provider, right? So uh you do not need to you don't have to, I guess what I'm saying is you actually own that list, right? So I highly recommend authors focus on building an email list. And I have a couple of quotes from a couple of authors here that I want to share. So Danny said, my email list allowed me to generate reviews and launch the book to #1 new release in Gaslight Fantasy for the first week of release. Caleb said, my mailing list is a major component of my marketing of my book. Without it, I would be dead in the water. I could share probably 100 different quotes from authors about the value of building a mailing list. And I'm sure many of you have heard from author friends that have email lists just how important they are. So I won't harp on that. So I really want to talk about how to build an email list. So, the stuff that we're going to be talking about today are tactics that you can start to apply immediately, even if you do not have a book published yet. So, we're going to be talking about how can you start doing this stuff today. Um, let's jump right into it. So a quick mailing list 101. You want to make sure that you use an email service provider when you build that email list and when you send those emails out. So email service providers are like MailChimp, MailerLite, ActiveCampaign. Some of the newer, more affordable ones would be like Author Email or SendFox. The reason that you want to use one of these email service providers to send your emails through is they help you comply with regulations like GDPR and CAN spam. The other thing is they also help you send over 1,000 plus emails in a single day. And you might be thinking, when am I ever going to be sending over 1,000 emails in a single day? And trust me, you will get there much faster than you expect. Um, there are a lot of if you're sending emails just through your normal Yahoo or Gmail account, you can only send different outboxes basically have different caps, but like Gmail, I think is you're limited to sending up to 500 emails in a single day. It's different for Yahoo or Outlook or whatever else, right? But there are caps on them, so you need to use an email service provider in order to send out basically an infinite amount of those emails in a single day. The other thing that email service providers do is they also help you avoid being categorized by spam, and they help you track analytics around open rates, click rates, unsubscribes, etc. So definitely check out different email service providers. The one I recommend using is MailerLite. It's just easy to get started. They have a really large free tier where you can start to use automations and stuff, even when you're on the free tier. So that's a good one to get started out with. In terms of why, I guess the first question that you really have to ask when when you're starting your email list is, why would someone want to sign up to my mailing list? And the way to answer that is, if you are an author, what are readers looking for? They're looking for a story. So I recommend you give them a free story when they sign up to your mailing list, and you're immediately showing them the value of being on your mailing list. So this free story that you give to someone when they sign up to your mailing list is called a reader magnet. I recommend using a 10 to 20,000 word short story prequel to your book or series as your reader magnet. Now, if you are a fiction author. If you're a nonfiction author, I would recommend using something like, perhaps a worksheet or workbook that goes along with your nonfiction book. I was talking to an author the other day, Dale Roberts, who's a part of this author conference as well. He, you know, he started out in nonfiction in health and fitness. And what he gave away as a reader magnet was a workout routine. Uh, didn't take him long to put together, but he got thousands of signups to his mailing list just from that very simple workout routine reader magnet that he put together. So, again, if you're a fiction author, I recommend 10 to 20,000 word short story prequel to your book or series. And I just want to dive in real quickly because that's a really compact sentence, and I want to get to why I recommend that specifically. So, first is with a prequel, it hooks your readers into wanting to read the follow up book. The other thing is that it provides an effective introduction to your universe. So, if you're using a side story or a bonus chapter or something like that as a reader magnet, those would require context that new readers would not get if they have not read book one in your series. Versus with a prequel, you can explain all the context of the universe, etc. So that prequel can be useful both, and this is sort of the third part, that prequel can be valuable to both readers who have and have not read book one in your series. The other reason, so why do I recommend 10 to 20,000 words? First, if it's the longer that a book gets, the lower that your read through rate is going to be. So you want to make sure that it's not too long because you want to have a high read through rate to getting into your paid books or your series. If it's too short, readers will feel like they're shortchanged, right? So if you only write a 200 word short story and someone signs up to your mailing list and they get that 200 word short story, yes, the read through rate will be immensely high, like 100%, because it takes no time to read 200 words at all. But that reader is also going to feel like they were going to get a full story when they signed up to your mailing list. And if you only give them 200 words, they're not going to feel like that. So that's why I recommend that 10 to 20,000 range as being a good range. And lastly, we are giving this away for free to people who sign up to our mailing list, but a lot of readers are going to be getting this as the first thing that they ever read from you. And so you want to make sure that it's still highly polished, because if there's a lot of grammatical issues, typos, plot holes, etc., in that reader magnet, that free story, they're going to expect the same out of your paid books. So you still need to make sure that you get that story well edited. So even though you're giving it away for free, still gotta have it edited well. And just having it on that shorter side, that 10 to 20,000 word side, makes it both quicker to write and cheaper to edit. So I'm gonna check through the comments here real quick, see if we've got any questions. Let's see. Someone mentions they did 10 free short stories with characters from their upcoming novel each month leading up to the launch, then sent them all in an anthology after the launch. That is a great idea, right? You can use like an anthology, a compilation of short stories if you don't want to have like a single prequel that's a lead into your book or your series. The other thing I would recommend with that reader magnet is take the first 1, 2, or 3 chapters of the next book in the series after that reader magnet, put it into the back of that reader magnet with with this short story. So they go from reading your short story or anthology, etc., into reading book one. And then they're left with that, okay, I've read 3 chapters into book one already. I really want to buy this book because I want to see where this story is leading. So it lends itself to a much better hook into reading book one. I see a lot of authors do this in their paid books, right? Where you include the first couple of chapters of the next book in the back of your paid books. But then I see a lot of authors don't think of this with their reader magnets for some reason. Highly recommend doing that with your reader magnets as well, though. Let's see. Any other questions? Someone asked, what was the prequel word count suggested? I said 10 to 20,000 words is sort of the the amount that I recommend. So let's get into right. So we've got a reader magnet. We've written it, we've edited it, we've got our book cover together. How how are people actually going to sign up to get our reader magnet? So, this is where you need to build a landing page and provide some method for delivering that file to the reader. You could do this on your own website. You could, build a landing page on your own website, and you could, have a link to uh, the file on Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that. And you could write, you know, instructions for how readers are supposed to get that file on a bunch of different types of devices that all have work slightly differently. And then you'd have to handle customer support for all that stuff. You could do that. The other thing that you can do is use a service like Story Origin. On Story Origin, you can really, really simply set up a reader magnet landing page, and Story Origin will automatically handle the file downloads aspect of that. And the other benefit is if readers do run into any trouble with getting that file onto whatever their preferred reading device is, Story Origin handles the customer support. So you don't need to worry about helping them out. And if they ever do run into in trouble and they email you, you can always just forward them on to Story Origin. So it saves you a lot of time, and you don't have to deal with the technical hassle of how do you maintain this landing page? How do you integrate that with your email service provider so that contacts are sent automatically to your email list, all that stuff. Story Origin, you can integrate your reader magnets with 9 different email service providers. So, MailerChimp, MailerLite, SendFox, Author Email, etc. Um, and then when a reader requests your reader magnet on your Story Origin landing page, their contact info is zipped straight over to your email service provider's mailing list. So it's totally seamless. You don't have to spend a ton of time dealing with that. If you happen to be using an email service provider that Story Origin doesn't provide an integration with, you can always download a CSV of the signups you've gotten to your reader magnets from Story Origin and just import that manually into whatever email service provider you're using. So you don't have to use integrations with Story Origin, but it is a huge convenience thing for authors. So we've talked about what you need, right? You need that landing page, and you need the file delivery mechanism. Now, where are people actually going to find your reader magnet? How are people going to find your reader magnet? So, as we talked about earlier, putting the link in the back of your book is a great place to um, capture readers that would be interested in learning more about your universe. So, if at the back of book 1 you have a link to, hey, you can get the prequel here and really explore my universe in depth, those are going to be some of your best subscribers because they are going to be the ones that really want to explore your universe in depth versus their subscribers that are coming to your reader magnet with you as a new, uh, them being new to you. They are, they're not as likely as a reader that's already paid into your book or your series to end up buying all the books in your series. But that said, new readers, getting new readers on your mailing list who have never read book 1, still hugely valuable. A lot of authors choose to actually, when they're doing advertising across social media, would rather collect email list signups than just advertising their paid books, because when you have someone on your email list, especially when you're at the early stages of being an author and you don't have a backlist with 20 different books in it, let's say you only have one book out, getting that email address is so much more valuable because when you release book 2, book 3, book 4, etc., you can email them directly and say, hey, I just released book 2 or book 3, etc. um if you've got a huge backlist already, then those readers could buy into book 1 and then just go on to book 2, book 3, book 4. But especially when starting out, having that email is so much more valuable. The other places that you would want to post the link to your reader magnet landing page besides the back matter of your published books would be your author website or your blog posts. As doing Facebook ads, etc. for it. We already sort of talked about that. And lastly is email cross promotions. And email cross promotions are a big category, and it's growing quickly. And the reason why is that they are free. So let's talk about what an example of an email cross promotion is real quick. So for example, we might do what's called a newsletter swap, where I agreed to mention one of your books in one of my upcoming newsletters if you agree to mention one of my books in one of your upcoming newsletters. Now, when we make this agreement, I'm not saying that I will recommend your book in my newsletter. I'm simply agreeing to mention your book in my newsletter. So typically, the way that I'll frame this in my newsletter is, uh, I'll typically, write something up where, I'll talk about, hey, here's what I've been working on this week, et cetera, et cetera. And then at the bottom of that email, I would share something like, here's other books for you to check out. These are not books. And so I won't say in there like, hey, I read this book, loved it, because I haven't always necessarily read all of those books before agreeing to mention them in my newsletter. So, uh, I would just frame it as here's some other books to check out. And readers love this because many readers do not have uh many readers are looking for they're looking for what they're going to read next. And you as an author can never satiate any reader's demand for the number of books that they want, right? I can't write 20 books in a single year, but a reader will read 20 books in a single year. So when you become a source of what to check out next, that gives your readers a reason to keep opening and clicking on your emails because they're always looking for what's next, what's next, what's next. So, going back to why email cross promotions are growing quickly, it's free, right? When I agree to mention one of your books and you agree to mention one of mine, we don't have to pay anybody, right? We're just making agreement. There's no money exchanging hands. The second thing is it's easy. All I'm doing is agreeing to mention one of your books in one of my upcoming newsletters. So I'll, put your book cover in my newsletter, put a description of the book. Maybe I'll throw in one of the reviews that you have from that book into my newsletter or something like that. It doesn't take more than, you know, 2 minutes for me to put that book in a newsletter. The other thing is that it is targeted by genre. So when I agree to do cross promotion with another author, I'll set that up with another author that is in my genre. So I know that my book is going to be seen by a relevant audience. And the other huge upside of, on the easy side of things is like you don't need to figure out some complicated like ads dashboard, targeting, bidding strategies, et cetera, right? They're simple and easy and targeted by genre, and it's totally free. So they make a lot of sense, right? Um, awesome. I'm gonna go in here and look for questions again real quick. Let's see. Do we have any questions? Um, so someone asked a question about Story Origin versus other services. So like I was talking about at the beginning, Story Origin, today we're mostly just talking about reader magnets and cross promotion and stuff. Uh, but Story Origin is sort of a one-stop shop. So you might have to use one service for, delivering your freebies and doing cross promotions, but Story Origin also overlaps with other services that you would use for finding reviewers, other services you would use for creating universal book links, other services that you might use for tracking like daily word count and setting goals, and figuring out what your target daily word count needs to be in order to hit those goals. Story Origin is pretty unique in helping you distribute your audiobook promo codes to reviewers. Um, and then Story Origin also has a really cool new beta copies feature for collecting feedback from beta readers, which we're not going to talk about today, but it's very, very cool and pretty that whole suite of features around storage and is quite unique in that you can do everything in one place. Um, let's see. Other questions. Someone said they have yet to do a newsletter swap. Highly recommend trying to do a newsletter swap because they are so valuable. A lot of authors, a lot of authors that are just getting started get hung up on the terminology of what a newsletter swap is because they hear that word and they think, okay, are we swapping email lists? Like, am I supposed to give you my readers' contact information? You give me yours? No, 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 no. Do not do that. Do not share your subscriber information. A newsletter swap is simply an agreement that you're going to mention my book in your newsletter and I'll mention your book in my newsletter. We are not exchanging any reader contact information or anything like that. Unfortunately, it's the terminology that the author, authors have sort of culminated around, but it confuses a lot of new authors. Um, so the other type of cross promotion that you can set up with authors is called a group promotion. A group promotion is where you, me, and let's say 20 other authors all in the same genre all list our books on a single landing page, and then we all drive our traffic to that single landing page. And so we can, essentially, I would, if my book is accepted into a group promotion, then I would normally what I would do is there's a banner image from the landing page where all the books are hosted. I'll take that banner image, put it into my newsletter, and then I will embed the link for that group promo into that image. So when a reader comes and clicks on that image in my newsletter, it'll take them over to the landing page and it shows all the authors' books that are participating in that group promo. And that way we're all sort of lifting each other up. And we're all exposing our audiences to all of these books on the single landing page, and so we're all helping each other out. That is the awesome thing about the author community is that um it's what I like to call co-opetition. You know, it's cooperation with your competition, because like I was saying earlier, you can't write the number of books to satiate any particular reader with the amount of time that you have. So authors usually will cooperate with one another to help find each other new readers because if a reader reads my book and then reads your book, that doesn't take anything out of my pocket, right? We both gain something from that. A lot of some of the common questions I get around reader magnets and group promotions are: first is, I have a book in Kindle Unlimited. Can I use that as a reader magnet? So if your book isn't on Kindle Unlimited, then you've agreed to an exclusivity clause where that book can only be distributed through Amazon. But according to Amazon's KDP knowledge base, they'll allow you to give up to 10% of that book away as like a sample version. And the reason that they do that is Amazon already has this look inside feature where readers can click on any book on Amazon and then read approximately the first 10% of it already on Amazon. And they're like, we let readers see that amount for free anyway, so you can go ahead and do the same. The other common question that I get is, can I join cross promotions if I have 0 subscribers? And the answer is absolutely. You probably won't believe me when I say this, but yes, you can absolutely apply for newsletter swaps, group promos, even when you have 0 subscribers. Many of the other authors that you'll find on Story Origin uh, were probably in your shoes not more than like a few weeks or a few months ago, where they had 0 people on their mailing list and now they've got hundreds or thousands of people on their mailing list. And so it's not a long time for them in their experience to be like, oh yeah, I remember being there, a few weeks or a few months ago. Someone lent a hand to me and helped build me up. And so I'm generally more than open to lend a hand to that other person that's now coming up behind me. Right. The other thing, so just besides the pay it forward mentality, the second thing is authors, like I was saying before, when you become that source of things to check out for your readers, you become that source of new books for them to discover. That makes them want to open and click on your emails. And so authors with huge mailing lists, 5,000, 10,000 people on their mailing lists, whatever, they still are always looking for books to share in their newsletters because that is what gets a lot of their readers to open and click on their emails. So, um, even if you've got 0 people on your mailing list, if you've got a really interesting book for that author to share in their newsletter, then that is hugely valuable to them because they are always looking for what can I share? What can I help my readers discover? Um, the next common question is what do I do when someone actually signs up to my mailing list? And what you want to do is you want to send them a welcome email. Before we get into welcome emails, I'm going to check here real quick to see if we have any other questions again. Um, co cooperation, co-opetition. Yes. Yeah, it's a great word. I do like that one. Um, some authors were asking about sort of genres. So you can go on Story Origin and you can look at the upcoming group promos and newsletter swaps, even on the free tier of Story Origin. So um, if you just want to sign up to a free account on Story Origin, you can. And then you can see the upcoming group promos and newsletter swaps and add your tags to see if you can find other authors in your genre that are already on Story Origin to do cross promotions with. Um, so yeah, I would highly recommend that. If you just want to know, like, oh, are there other authors in my genre? That's the fastest way to figure out. Uh, Someone else asks, is the email service provider called MailerLite? Yes, you are spelling that correctly. MailerLite, Lite at the end there. No space between those two. Someone asked a question about how to do this with nonfiction books if there's no book two. So again, if you write in nonfiction, a good reader magnet would be something like a worksheet or workbook or flashcards, etc. Give that away to people that sign up to your mailing list, and then they have book one. And then oftentimes the way that you make more money as a nonfiction author is by after someone has read that book one, you upsell them into a course or training or coaching, etc. Um, so that's how you sort of in do the follow on from your book one as a nonfiction author. So let's see. Someone asked how often you should scrub your list. So I would say that it depends. If you're on a really affordable email service provider, and only costs you $20 a month to have 10,000 people on your mailing list, then it's not super, scrubbing your email list can be valuable um to having a good open and click rate so that email servers recognize you as a trusted sender and stuff like that. Generally, what I would recommend is scrubbing your email list often enough that you keep your open rates somewhere around, 30% is what I would consider a good open rate. Um, so if you can stay around there, that's sort of how often I would scrub things. Just really depends. But again, if you're on a free tier on an email service provider, then you might not have a ton of value from just like scrubbing all the time, right? Um, and then once you hit the limit of the free tier, like 1,000 subscribers or 2,000 subscribers, then it's time like, okay, now I'm going to call some of the people from my mailing list that never open stuff. That's generally what I would recommend for a beginner. All right, so let's get into things because we're running out of time here. So I'm gonna probably just blast through the rest of this without answering any additional questions, and then I'll come to the end if I can. So the main goals of welcome sequence are to ensure that the reader has gotten the download. You want to remove freebie seekers, people who are never going to open emails, right? A good way to do that is with your welcome sequence. And then you also want to find your champions. So the way that I frame newsletters in general is treating it like you're bringing a friend to a party. When you bring a friend to a party, the first things that you do is like you introduce them to your crew, right? You don't like bring a friend to a party and then say, okay, cool, let's go hang out with other people now, and then leave them at like the food table and then you just walk away. Don't do that. Don't do that when you bring a friend to a party where they don't know anybody. You bring them and then you introduce them to your friends, right? And you ask them questions to engage them in a conversation with your friends at the party. That way, everyone starts to understand sort of their personal connections. You share personal stories so that other people understand, the histories involved of everyone in the group and how you all know each other, etc. Right? So, making this actionable to how you write a newsletter. So, first off, you want to write your newsletter as if you're addressing an individual, not a group. So you would always say, hey Evan, or hey first name. You would want to avoid addressing your newsletter like, hey gang, hey group, howdy y'all, whatever your preferred pluralism is for a group of people. And then the other thing in your newsletter is share personal stories or pictures, or better yet, both. That way you can start to build a personal rapport with your audience. And the last piece is you might create a forum or for readers to meet each other. That way, when someone joins your mailing list, you can say, "Hey, come join the party, hang out with me and in the rest of your tribe here." In this forum, the easiest way to create one of those would just be like as a Facebook group. But if you're familiar with running other types of forum software, you could do that as well. But the easiest one generally is just to set up a Facebook group. If you're not if you don't go on Facebook all the time and you don't really like Facebook, then don't do it, because if it's not a place that you want to spend your time, then it's not worth it to add that to your plate. The most important thing is that you focus on that mailing list, because that gives you the best way to stay in contact with your readers. So for your email sequence, I recommend a 3 email sequence, especially when starting out. Is here's it, email one is the thank you and the freebie. So you would have that email triggered when someone signs up to your mailing list. They immediately get sent this email that says, hey, here's your download of the book. Thanks for joining my mailing list. Here's a little bit about me. And then you might also link to that Facebook group or forum. And then for the call to action for that email, I would recommend saying, asking them a really simple question, maybe related to your personal story. I was talking to another author the other day. She ends one of her emails with, "What do you prefer, 5-star hotel or camping?" Right? That makes it really easy for the reader to respond. And then from there, you can, if they say, "Oh, I prefer camping," you can ask them follow-up questions like, "Oh, what are your favorite places to camp, etc." That way you can start to really build personal connections with your audience, because they will become your champions in the future. Those people who are willing to leave reviews, tweet about things, become beta readers for you, etc. So on Story Origin, if you're using the reader magnet landing page, they'll already have the download, so you don't really need to worry about providing the download to them. But it's good to provide that download to them in your welcome sequence again. And for that, you would want to use the direct downloads feature on Story Origin. That provides them a way to download the book without also resubscribing to your mailing list again. So that's the direct downloads feature. For the second email in your welcome sequence, I would recommend, this is like the introduce yourself and your community email. So trigger it, 1 to 3 days after a reader has subscribed. The subject line might be something like my first love, or how I joined the underworld, or genre is the best and here's why. For the content of that email, I would recommend, again, like a personal story, this time related to your genre. That way you're connecting with the reader, because you can both share that love of whatever genre it is that you write in, and you can take it more from the reader's perspective, and that way you're finding your shared interests. And then again, I would say put the link to download that reader magnet, with that direct download feature, put that in your second email. Because even though it might be on the person's to be read list, just by mentioning it and saying it again, provides them the nudge to get started reading. Because if they might download the book and then they might never read it. So it's really important that you get them hooked into starting to read it when they first join your mailing list. Because if they don't go and read it, then you're not going to be able to hook them into buying book one, right? So again, for the call to action for this email, I'd recommend like having another question, maybe about like, oh, how did they discover the genre? Or your call to action might be to join your Facebook group or forum again. Email 3 is all about finding your champions. So I would trigger this, 2 to 7 days after the reader has subscribed. The subject might be something like, get the follow up to, get book 1 in my series for free. And then the content of that just might be something like, hope you enjoyed my download of the reader magnet. And then the call to action is, if you want to get book 1 for free, go here and you can request a review copy of that book. This way, you can find your champions, those people who are going to be reviewers for you. So let's talk real quick about managing a review team. There's basically 2 sides to managing a review team. There are vetting review copy requests and tracking and follow-up. So when someone requests a review copy from you, and there's a specific review copies feature on Story Origin, that makes this really simple. People would say where they intend to leave a review of that book, and then if they say they're going to leave a review on Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, etc., they would also leave the link to their reviewer profiles. You can do this with like a Google form if you wanted to as well. Story Origin just makes this simpler. So after they have left their link to their, let's say Amazon reviewer profile, what I would recommend when you're vetting them is check out their Amazon reviewer profile. Have they written reviews before? And are those reviews for books in your genre? If you write steamy romance and this person has only ever reviewed clean romance, you might not want to approve them to download the review copy because they might be thinking they're going to get something that they're not. And you don't want someone to feel like they should leave a review for a book when it's going to be a book that they're not going to enjoy. And then lastly is you want to make sure that they have a history of completed reviews. Now, you can't do this if you are just doing it on your own using like a Google form or something like this. This is where like the value of Story Origin using the review copies feature on Story Origin becomes exponentially valuable, is that when you distribute your review copy through Story Origin, when a reader requests it, you can see the number of review copies they've been approved for through Story Origin before, and then whether or not they've completed those review copies. So, they said they were going to leave reviews for, 20 books on Amazon and they've completed 19 of them. Well, then I can be relatively certain that they're actually going to leave and finish the review process for my book as well. Or you might see they've only done it for 1 out of those 20, in which case I'm probably not going to give that person the link to download my review copy through Story Origin just because they're probably not actually going to follow through. When you're just doing that through a Google form, you don't really have that community knowledge on hand. So the second part of managing a review team is the tracking and follow-up. So first time that you want to follow up is if your book is pre-publication. On publication date, you need to make sure that you send emails to your reviewers to say, hey, the book is published. You can go and leave your reviews now across Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, again, etc., wherever you have the book available for review. Story Origin handles this for you automatically. So you just hit mark as published on Story Origin. Story Origin automatically sends out that email blast for you. And then 2 weeks after, if they have not completed their review process for that review copy, then you would want to follow up with them again. And again, Story Origin handles this for you automatically, where it will send an email to those reviewers if they have not completed that review copy in that 2-week time frame. And then lastly, once someone leaves a review, then you would want to follow up with them and say, hey, thanks for leaving a review. If you want to get book 2 in the series, you can request the review copy here. And that's how you start to build, a review team, people who are going to review all of your books for you. So that email, Story Origin doesn't automatically handle that. When they leave a review, that's a great opportunity for you to start to build a personal relationship with that reviewer. And so that is a great email for you to send. So again, just the way that works on Story Origin, they have a reviewer request form where they would say where they intend to leave reviews for the book. They would put the links to their reviewer profiles. They would submit it, and then that request comes to you, the author. And then you can look at their reviewer profile and see, okay, the links to their reviewer profiles across Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, etc. You can see the completion stats that they have. And you can also see if they've completed other review copies that you have given through them through Story Origin before. And then once they're approved for that book, Story Origin has a review copy process page for that reader. So it gives them the link to how to download the book, and then they can write their review on Story Origin. Hugely valuable if you're doing pre-publication review copies and they're writing their review like 2 months ahead of when the book's going to be published. They can write it on Story Origin so they don't have to come up with that review like 2 months after they read the book. And then they would step 3 is they would confirm that they left their reviews across whatever platforms they said that they would review it on. And then on the author side, you can actually see as they complete those steps, check marks for that on Story Origin. You've got like a timeline of when each reviewer did each thing. We talked here a couple of times about doing stuff pre-publication, but the review copies feature on Story Origin can be used for pre-publication books or post-publication books. So if the book is already on sale, you can still give that book out for free to readers who you think might leave a review for you. Let's talk really quickly. So that's sort of the welcome sequence. You've got your welcome sequence, last emails, find reviewers, find your champions, and let them request a review copy from you. For regular emails, so just the newsletters that you do, I recommend doing those either once per month to once per week. I would say if you do like once every 3 months, that's going to be too far apart. Readers are going to forget who you are, and it's just going to make things more difficult. In terms of, but you don't want to go too frequently. Like every single day would probably be too frequently. So I recommend somewhere between once per week, once per month, with twice per month being my recommendation of that's what I would do twice per month. So for the content of those regular newsletters, again, it's like personal stories, general interests, like, hey, I watched this movie or I read this book lately. Maybe community happenings if you have a Facebook group or forum, where you could say, oh, here's things that were being discussed in this forum. And then that gets people sort of involved with one another and you're sort of really building a tribe there. And then lastly is deals. So those books from cross promotions, other things for readers to check out. That is a hugely valuable things to readers. In terms of the number of cross promotions I recommend per newsletter is 2 to 4 newsletter swaps and maybe 1 to 3 group promos per newsletter. The only thing that you really want to be wary of is when you're sending, when you are doing cross promotions on Story Origin, you are you get a specific tracking link that is specific to you that will see how many clicks you sent to that cross promotion. So when I when I request a newsletter swap with you, you can see how many clicks I've sent to past newsletter swaps and past group promos. And if I'm sending, only 1 or 2 clicks to each, book that I agree to mention in my newsletter, you're probably not going to accept with that newsletter swap with me. And if I'm putting 20 books in my newsletter, I'm probably only going to send a couple of clicks to each one. So you just want to make sure that you're not putting so many books in your newsletter that, you're not doing a good job of actually sending traffic to those other authors. So that's sort of where you want to find your cap in terms of how many books you might want to, how many cross promotions you might want to put in your newsletter. Last thing I'll mention is when you're just getting started, organizing your own group promos is probably one of the it's a very simple thing to do. You basically create a banner image, and you can do that just by finding a royalty free stock image and then slapping some text on it, putting it up on Story Origin, saying what the genre is, etc. It's really easy to do, and not many authors do it, but it is hugely valuable to do because you can set books to be premium spots, so they'll appear at the top of the landing page for the group promo. And so your books will just naturally get more visibility. Normally, every book on the page is rearranged, and every time any reader clicks on that page, it's just automatically rearranged. So every author has a chance of their books showing up at the top. With your books being in those premium spots at the top, though, they'll always appear at least at the top of the page. So you'll get substantially more visibility from readers by being the organizer and giving your own books those premium spots. The only thing is you got to create a banner image, and it's good if you post the link for where other authors can apply It'll automatically be on Story Origin where other authors can find it, but also posting the link for other authors to apply across various Facebook cross promotion groups is another great thing to do. And that also starts to allow you to build more personal relationships with other authors that you're running these cross promotions with when you are connecting with them over Facebook groups, etc. And then those relationships are valuable to you in the future when you've got a new release and you want to set up a newsletter swap or something like that as well. All right. I am going to end it there. I will go ahead and check for questions. But thank you again, everyone, for coming to this session, spending your Saturday with me. I really appreciate your time. I hope that you got something out of it. And I'll stick around for the next few minutes to answer any questions that anyone has. Just real quick, um, if you go to Story Origin and you have any questions on it, you can always there's a contact link in the footer on Story Origin that's got my email address out there in the public for anybody to send me an email. My inbox is always open. You talk to other authors that use Story Origin and they'll say, they will tell you, yes, Evan personally responds to your emails. It's true. I do it. So inbox is always open. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions. If you do want to get involved in doing reader magnets, group promos, newsletter swaps, etc. on Story Origin and use some of those other advanced features too, like beta copies, audiobook promo code distribution, etc. Those are on the standard plan on Story Origin, which is $10 per month or $100 per year. Many authors say, hang on, that doesn't make any sense. I just heard that you essentially do like what would take me a whole bunch of other stuff to do, and you do it for less than that. So authors are always telling me it's super affordable, and I like to keep it that way because I want Story Origin to be valuable. I want something that it can be used for authors who are just starting out, not making a penny off their books yet, still trying to figure things out. I want it to be accessible to everyone. So Story Origin will always be affordable to authors. Um, and yeah, highly, if you ever have any questions on it, certainly feel free to reach out to me. I will. Yes. SD Huston says, and he replies. Richard says, Evan is very responsive. AF Stewart says, yes, Evan does. Richard says, worth every penny. I appreciate that, Richard. Thank you so much. Rachel said, yep, he got back to me with explanations. I appreciate that. Thank you all again. I'm gonna scroll up here real quick to see if I can find any questions. If I haven't answered them already, feel free to pop them again in the chat at the bottom there so I can go check them real quick. Let's see. All right. Awesome. All right. I'm not seeing any additional questions. So thank you again all for your time. Really appreciate you coming today. Thank you. Y'all have a good afternoon. And I hope you get a ton of value out of the rest of the conference as well. All right. Bye, everyone.